Hey, hello everyone. My name is Will Patterson. I am a former sales engineer here at Securely. I now work on the customer experience and marketing teams. And today we're going to do a walkthrough of the safety console, which is where our safety products reside. So this is going to include Filter, Auditor, 24, management of 24 and tip line, of course. So I'm going to be doing this from kind of the perspective of the IT admin. I want to give you a good overview of what you can expect inside of this place, what you can't do, what everyday actions look like, and then of course, what kind of resources are available for you for once you go through evaluation, or maybe you're watching this and you're already a customer. This is a great walkthrough of just our brand new user interface as well. So let's get started. I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see it. So, so the safety console. This has recently been updated. We updated our user interface less than a year ago, I think towards the end of 2020. And you can authenticate into this space if you are a Google super admin or a Azure global administrator. When you go to securely.com and hit sign in, this is right where it takes you. The very first page is the dashboard. So this is really meant to be kind of like your finger on the pulse. What are some high level things that you can look at? So we asked a lot of IT admins when we were redesigning this interface, what do you look for just about every single day? What would help you, right? So a lot of the widgets that you see inside of this came from feedback, right, from users just like you. So this gives you ideas of if you're using our filter, what sites your users are going to, what videos they're going to, and how many videos are being watched of that, right? It helps you spot trends. One of the unique things about Securely is our student safety component. So when a user is saying something that would be considered self-harm or cyberbullying, we call that flag. So we'll flag content like that, and it has its own widget. And actually, there's one here towards the bottom as well too, called recently flagged activity. We'll talk about all these in detail, but you'll notice this is saying the user's name. We've recently updated our interface so that we're talking more to Google. That API opened up, and we're able to gather first and last name, which is very beneficial for most schools because, you might have student emails that are just a string of letters and numbers. So if you have Google or Azure integrated with your SIS, we can bring that information over, which is nice. And going down, obviously, top block sites makes sense. We're looking at the searches that users are making. So of course, because we are a content filter and we're doing SSL decryption in the cloud, when users are going to your search engines, be it Google, Yahoo, Bing, or even YouTube and Wikipedia, we're doing a little bit more inspection on those sites, and we're looking specifically at the keywords that they're searching for. These are things that we might flag, like if a student is searching for suicide or how to hurt myself. But probably more important for you as a school is, the things that we can help you block, so that students, even if you're using Google Safe Search, you're blocking keywords that you don't want them to be able to go to. So we're showing those here as well too. Policy traffic over here to the right. This is showing you a breakdown of just the distribution of where most of your traffic is originating from. You have multiple policies with Securely. It can be a policy that kind of acts like a catch-all, like our default policy. But you can have granular policies as well too that are meant to be sort of like that logical container that's targeted to like maybe your middle school OUs, and all of them are getting the middle school policy. We also have policies for take home and guest network policies, but we'll get to that. But this helps you identify also interesting trends. If you're seeing a lot of traffic going into, like, say, the default policy, but that doesn't go with your understanding because you've mapped everybody to granular policies, then that might be an indicator for you to look and see, like, okay, all right, is everything synced properly, right? But so this is very, very powerful. Recently flagged activity. So this is going to show you in real time flagged alerts as they come through. We wanted to bubble this up to the top just because we find it important. And schools, especially a lot of the admins, when we asked, this is one of the things that they looked at almost every single day. So we wanted to put this on the front page. This is, of course, a demo account, so we don't have a ton of data in here. This is our flagged activity heat map. And for every 7 days, this shows you a breakdown of the time and day where flagged alerts are occurring. This gives you a better representation visually of where areas of concern might be. You might notice, so these little blocks will become darker or lighter depending on how much activity is happening during that time. And if you're noticing that there's flagged alerts happening Sunday morning at 6 a.m., not during school hours, you might be interested in seeing exactly what's going on there. So you can click on that little block, and that takes you into the flagged alert section, and it'll show you all the alerts that happened during that time period. Also, in the safety arena is this final widget, which is called flagged activity locations. Now, this does have a couple prerequisites for it to work properly. For example, your devices need to be managed by you, the school, and inside of the Google Admin Console if it's a Chromebook, or your MDM if it's a Mac or an iPad. You need to have it enforce sharing geolocation data. And we have knowledge base articles that walk one through it. Our sales engineers would help you. But assuming that you have that enabled, what will happen here is when a student produces like a piece of flagged activity, whether it's on, again, like an iPad, or whether it's on that or on a Chromebook, what we'll do is we'll gather that geolocation and we'll place it on a pin here. This is something that is really truly meant to just help you in the hopefully unfortunate, or hopefully you're able to get into it quickly, but essentially interjecting yourself if need be. Like, so if you saw an alert where a student said, something like, I want to hurt myself imminently, you can see where that is and inform the right persons. So this is the dashboard. Now, before we move on to the next piece, I did want to mention that all these widgets, when you look at it for the first time, show this data for all policies, but you can filter this by any other custom policy you may have. So what I do like about this is, if you're curious about trends, especially, and maybe like what the middle school's doing, if you click on any of these policies, this shows data for that specific policy. So it does behoove one to build granular policies, because all of our analytics help support that. So you'll also notice this little widget in the bottom right-hand corner. This is our knowledge base, and I guess maybe you can just call this securely widget. And what's cool about this is it has access to a ton of resources. It actually has our knowledge base built into it. You can search for just about anything inside of here and pull up a knowledge base article. So if you're curious about how we handle guests or build policies, you can just type that in there. It's directly integrated with Zendesk. This section right here is our onboarding guide. So everything that I want to speak about today, there's more in-depth content. We have video walkthrough guides for just about everything inside of here, recorded by our different subject matter experts. So literally the director of our 24 platform talked about how 24 gets onboarded, and you have a video for it right here. And then if you're like me and you just want to get to brass tacks, you can literally click on one of these guides that just walks you right through how to perform an action. When you click through each of these, they walk you step by step through all the necessary things one has to do to get fully onboarded. I personally built this, so I'm really proud of this. We'll also put brand new content and new features whenever we build them. So this will always be updated, and I'll have like a little number widget whenever there's new content there. So always be on the lookout. And that's the dashboard. Pretty great, right? Now, once you have securely set up in your org, the second most visited location inside of this place is your activity section. This is most likely where you'll spend most of your time. And this is a real-time view of all the activity happening on your account. The default view here is viewing all activities. So this shows absolutely everything. So this will include blocked activity, allowed activity, and flagged activity. But if you wanted to break it down to a specific type of activity, you can just hit this little breakdown. Go directly to flagged alerts, for example, and see exactly what your users were going to, like if they went to the suicide prevention hotline, or if they, typed an inappropriate search or something along those lines. You can break it down even further by going through these individual tabs right here for that specific type of content that you're looking for. We have a very powerful search, so you can type in keywords or specific users, and actually you can type in names now that we're bringing that data in. So if you wanted to see what Sally Smith or Jimmy Johnson or whatever is searching for, you can break it down from there as well, which I do love. In terms of also breaking this information down further, it's common that schools will be interested in specific types of activity. Securely categorizes a lot of the internet in simple categories. So if you want to see all of the, like specifically like students that are getting blocked from going to pornography or streaming media, you can select that specific category here. Also, all the granular policies, those custom policies that you create for your students and users. If you're interested in seeing what your staff members are being blocked by, for example, also a great way of breaking that down. Time and date, pretty self-explanatory. And yeah, so the only other thing I want to mention in here is, so obviously this is a super simple interface. We wanted this to be approachable by absolutely everybody, not just the IT admins that are out there. We don't assume that everybody has a Cisco cert, Microsoft cert. We also don't assume that people want or need every single bit of information that's out there. You don't need to see the full URL of a student who got blocked by going to messenger.com. You just want to know that idea, and you want to know what was happening. So it's easy to read on purpose, because we want you to be able to delegate this out to principals, guidance counselors, building level admins, and it needs to be readable by actual humans. But it doesn't mean to say that we don't have access to this data. When you mouse over the little eye over here, this tells you a little bit more information in terms of the policy that was applied, the public IP address where that came from, category. This will also show organizational unit information. So it'll let you know the full URL that they were in. And I believe actually in the upcoming release, so it's not live in this demo interface, it'll even show the full URL that was visited too. So you do have access to all this information if you need. And also, if you go to download a report, the report shows absolutely everything. So again, the user interface is really just so you can navigate through, get to what you need. But if you need that full on, just all the data, the full ball of wax as it is, you can download that as a report. You can even email it. And it's fairly common also for IT admins to build reports. And what I do love about this section is it can be automated, and it can also be something that happens at a cadence. So a good example here is a principal comes to you, the IT admin, and says, "All right, Mrs. Smith, I want to track Amar. Amar, hasn't been following the acceptable use policy at the school. Let's just keep tabs on him. I would like a report every single week." Well, before that was something that you would have to probably manually do. Here, all you have to do is just type in Amar, sorry, Amar at secureLysD.org. Type in that person, the principal's email address, sd.org, and choose what you're interested in having. So if they're wanting to keep tabs on a certain category of content or all content, you can define that. Let's see here. And you can schedule this. So going right here, let's just say I want this to happen, from here until February. Okay, cool. I'll schedule it. Now it's scheduled. So now the principal is going to get a email report for Amar every week. And this just saved you a ton of time. I know IT admins really, really love this. So, so that's where you'll probably spend most of your time. That's why I like starting with that. But when you're setting securely up, it's about making policies, right? So we've made that also super simple as well. Let's talk about what you see here in Policy Editor. Now, when you start with securely, you'll only see a couple of policies in place. You'll have the global settings. This is how you manage everybody. So if you wanted to block a specific site for absolutely everybody that's filtered by us, you can manage that here in the global settings. It has its own allow and block section. You also have what's called the default policy. This is a catch-all policy. You can't delete this policy. It's here. If securely doesn't know who the user is, we'll always at least give it generally your most strict policy, which is your default. But most schools go as far as building custom policies to represent either specific grade levels or specific groups of students like middle school or high school. Or they might even have one that's just generic for students and one for staff. To build a new policy, you simply click on custom policy, give it a name. We'll call it the ninth graders. Click create. And here you'll see tons of settings specifically for these users. This will be things like if you want to exclude them from a take-home policy, which is another type of policy you can create with securely. This is a policy that goes into effect when devices are not on your network. You can turn filtering off when it's off-site. You can have us flag gun-related searches. This is something we don't do by default. For many reasons, there could be gun clubs and things like this. But if you want to flag specific gun terms, you can. Let's see here. Authorize users of this policy to approve sites. This is a setting that's really geared more for faculty members. So this would be a setting that, and even the little tooltip underneath it says we would recommend you only turn this on for a faculty policy. If this is turned on, what will happen is on block pages, there is a like a temporary allow button. And if you were a teacher and you click on that button, you can type in your username and password, your Google or Azure credentials, and approve that site. And you as the admin see all of this. This is something that gets added to the audit log. I'll show you that here in a little bit as well too. To go along with that, to empower faculty members, this is another faculty-related setting. There is a access lookup tool specifically for them that they can access from securely.com. If they're building lesson plans and they want to make sure that certain websites are allowed for that course, this is a very powerful tool for them. Okay, here we go. So here's a setting that's great for students that maybe might not follow the acceptable use policy at your school. You can, if this setting is enabled, the only sites that this user can go to are the sites that you explicitly list out. So it's kind of like putting that student into timeout, right? You can limit it to just specific, lesson plan sites. Do like that. A 10-minute ban, very restrictive. If a student is going to 10 bad sites within 10 minutes, they get a 10-minute ban. Exclude from Google login restrictions. So as you know, Securely is deployed via a Google Chrome extension or DNS or SmartPack. But when it comes to authentication, we authenticate that user with school credentials, which is predominantly Google's the cloud identity provider in the United States. So you can restrict users to only be able to authenticate with your school Google credentials. It's in the global settings where you can restrict that. But the reason why we have this setting here, exclude from that, is, well, one, for staff members that might want to check their personal Gmail, or if this is a policy for your seniors or your juniors in high school and they're using personal email to apply for college, you may want to exclude them from this global setting so that they can check those personal things. We generally recommend limiting it to those certain groups because we want your users to always be authenticated with your school credentials. This is because, as you know, you can control a lot in the Google Admin Console. You manage YouTube restriction settings, what apps and things that can be installed or ran inside the browser. So it's very important that you can control and manage that, but we did build this as a per policy setting. Save search, this is something that we can enforce in all of your major search engines. So you can turn this on. I always recommend this for students. Restricting the image search to Creative Commons is another further restriction on save search. As you know, Google isn't perfect, but what this does is it limits the amount of searches that one can see, even in safe search, to just those that are within Creative Commons. This almost completely removes the chance of an inappropriate image or something like that from popping up. And then finally, keyword scanning. This is something that we also recommend having enabled for your students. When enabled, we are looking at the keywords that they're searching for on your major search engines. This also includes YouTube and Wikipedia. And this is also how we're able to block keywords for these users. So with keyword scanning enabled, if a student searched for an inappropriate keyword, instead of seeing even safe search results, they would get a block page. So I love it. So these are all the settings you can enable on a policy. You can also block categories right here. So this is just, again, makes it super easy to manage. You can turn on and off different categories, and it opens up or closes huge swaths of the internet. Block and allow. This is broken down in two ways. You can block specific URLs, top-level domains, paths, and then you have a specific area for just search terms. So this is just very, very powerful, very granular. This allows you to put, say, Justin Bieber in the block list right here, but if Justin Bieber is in the path of a URL, it's not blocking it. You're not being overly restrictive. So it gives you a lot of power here. I also love our category lookup tool. This is perfect for you if you're just curious to know how Securely has categorized a site, or if Securely in your mind has maybe miscategorized the site, you can request that site to be recategorized. This gets sent directly to our support team. We have a special group of users that'll go in and vet before anything gets changed. But yeah, very, very powerful. And then finally, one of our newest features, YouTube management. This is granular YouTube controls. Probably the most important one is the very first setting, which is the available restriction modes. So YouTube has 3 different levels of restrictions. You have, you can be completely open. You have moderate restricted mode, and then you have restricted mode. This setting can be enforced regardless of how Securely is filtered on your devices. So this works on SmartPack, DNS, and on the extension. And it also works regardless of if you have a Google domain or not. So if you're pure Azure, or if you are or Google, this will work regardless. So I do love this. This is a lot more controls, and especially for our Azure schools, not having that requirement of having a Google domain is huge, right? This is a setting that we didn't have previously. It was either on or off. There was no, well, I want people to have just moderate access or not, but now you have that control. The following settings are settings we can enforce on our Chrome extension. So being able to hide thumbnails, comments, the sidebar, very powerful. You can granularly allow and deny specific channels, videos. We're also bringing in all of YouTube's categories. So very, very granular control. And finally, what I do love about this new user interface is once you've built a policy that you love, it's super easy to clone. So if you wanted to be very granular and start building policies for every grade level even, you can build somewhat of like a primer and just clone off of it and adjust as needed, like tweak for like your high school students or middle school as appropriate. So those are custom policies. The other types of policies that one can create here are take-home policies. Like I mentioned before, if you don't have one already set, when you go to custom policy, it would show up. And actually, let me just run through that really quick so you can see. Yeah, so if you don't have a take-home policy, right? Like, so if your setup looks like this, what'll happen is if a user's mapped to a policy, they will always receive that policy. However, there's many times where you might want this user to have a different experience when they're at home. Maybe you're okay with them streaming Spotify at home. That's the use case for the take-home policy. You can only have one take-home policy. And what will happen is once you create this, this is what anyone who leaves your network is going to receive. Essentially, the moment that they come from an IP address, that's not managed, the moment that they come from an IP address that's not associated with your account, that's when this policy goes into effect. And that's why it's important that we have this setting at the per policy level. So we're looking at the staff policy right now. If we wanted to exclude staff members from that new take-home policy, what this has done is ensured that these staff members will always receive the staff policy because it's pretty lenient. But for all others, like high school, middle school, and others, they're going to get the take-home policy. So that's the use case for this. The other kind of policy that we can create is the guest network policy. The guest network policy is a amazing tool and very easy to deploy, but it's perfect for that side of your network where maybe parents connect to guest speakers. And the reason why I say it's perfect for them is there's no SSL decryption or authentication for users that receive this policy, meaning that you don't have to worry about talking through my mom how to install an SSL certificate on on her iPad or iPhone. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And you don't have to worry about doling out credentials for these users. It's when you apply this policy, you can say what what content can be allowed by category. It has allow and deny list, and yeah. And in terms of deployment, is extremely easy. In fact, the way you deploy the guest network policy is we give you a set of DNS IP addresses that are specific to our guest network policy. And when you maybe even have a guest network SSID wireless network, on the DHCP scope, you just put in R2 DNS IPs, and that's it. You are done. You can deploy our guest network policy in about 5 minutes, which is just legit. So I love it. We're in a demo interface, and it doesn't show the IP addresses here, but in your instance, it would show the 2 IPs here, and it'd be very easy to copy. You can also use our older implementation of the guest network policy. We call it source-based, but the way that we used to deploy the guest network policy was by requiring you to have a second public IP address and routing traffic out of that separate IP address. We can still do that. We can still support that, and that's what source-based is. But yeah, and if you have any questions about this specifically, that's what our support team's there for. We also have tons of knowledge base articles for this, for all of our deployments as well. And if you go down to installing filter, you'll see how to deploy all of our different solutions right here. It's a simple video recorded by Brandon Duckworth. He's one of our senior principal sales engineers. So we're here to help. Now, that is Policy Editor in a nutshell. Now, once you've built all of your policies, you have to tell securely who receives those. That's done in Policy Map. So inside of here, you're going to notice you'll see, your Google or Active Directory domain here, showing all your individual OUs or organizational units. So inside of here, you'll notice, so we're on our little demo domain, but we have a few subdomains underneath here. We have one for our students that has middle and high school, teachers, and things like this. And you'll even notice that off to the right-hand side, it'll tell you what policies applied to that OU. Obviously these are already mapped, but when you sync your domain for the very first time, everybody's going to receive the default policy. But to then map a policy to one of these OUs is as easy as checking the OU you want to map. And let's just say, let's pretend these Chromebooks, this is all of our ninth grade students. So we'll go here, we'll move to policy, and let's put them into the 9th grader policy. You'll see they're the only ones inside of there. We'll navigate back to all policies, and now we'll see Chromebooks, 9th graders policy. As easy as that. So this is one way you can map users to policies. Another way, this one's brand new. This is called custom groups. Now, what I love about custom groups is this now allows you to define at a specific user level. You can basically say, Jimmy, I want Jimmy to have this policy, and just Jimmy. And I don't want to have to move Jimmy around from OU to OU. That's what custom groups is built for. These also have time restraints if you want. So you can create a custom group. We'll call this Game Club. Game Club's going to receive the ninth grader policy. And we're going to say, I want the Game Club to have this until, I don't know, for these dates. We'll hit next. You can upload a CSV. So if it's a large group of users, you can even type in a person's name. So and then you're done. Once this timer has completed, that user goes right back to the policy that they're a part of. A number of other use cases here could be with penalty boxes, detention and things like that. So that's custom groups. Where Securely has some strong suits are with where we bring in other users, not just you, right? Granted, you probably wear a lot of hats already at school, but it's not attainable to manage a safety solution all by yourself. And that's where the staff tab comes into play. The admin group is where you can define other Securely admins. The persons that are added inside of this group can manage and control any of these settings and tabs. They can see all activity, all reporting, you name it. Now, this is very powerful. And if you add a user here, they do not have to be a Google super admin or Azure global administrator. They just simply have to be in this group. So very powerful. So I always like to kind of put that disclaimer out there. But faculty groups are really where you can, for those principals or building level admins or guidance counselors that want this data, right? Because they will once they see it. This is where you go to help empower them. Because once you add a faculty member into one of these groups, they can sign into the safety console. They'll see activities and flagged activities and Auditor, or they'll see what you give them permission to see. So if you're a high school principal, you can define what organizational units they should and shouldn't see and have access to. You can even define what kind of alerts this group of users has. So looking at the high school principal group here, it just has one high school principal. They're mapped to just the high school student OU. And here's the configuration for them. You can say if you want them to see flagged alerts or not. You can also turn on and off email alerts. And these are instant. So certainly be cognizant of that as well too. But you can have as many faculty groups as you want. You can also have as many users in these groups as you wish. But I always recommend including definitely all those building level and guidance counselor groups, because they're going to be game changer in managing and maintaining control. So this is the staff section in a nutshell. Also with users, Securely pioneered how we empower parents. This has come a long way. We have over 2 million parents currently enrolled, and we give them access through the Securely Home app. You can download this for free in the Apple Store or the Android Marketplace. Simply search for Securely Home. But inside of here, deploying couldn't be any easier. You as the school and as the admin can control what level of permissions and reporting access your parents have. So if you don't want your parents to be able to control that device when it leaves campus, you can say no control. But it's common that most schools will give parents some control. When you open this up, you can actually say what kind of settings or like categories they should be able to do. You can even define what they can allow and deny, which is great, because it offloads a lot of this to you, because not every parent wants to filter their students the exact same way as another parent. Report settings, you can show the full ball of wax. You can show what happens at home, or you can do this nice mix of the two. So this includes all at-home activity, but when it's at school, we'll just show the educationally categorized sites. So this was a feature request because some schools didn't want their parents to see that their child was on Best Buy during lunch or something like that. So we have all areas covered. And in terms of onboarding your parents, we have a secure FTP. So we can link directly up with your SIS, gather all the information as it updates and changes on your side. You can even do a CSV upload. So we have a nice little template you can download here, some best practice guides, and we also have like a video inside of here that walks one through it. But you can upload a single parent or all of your parents at once. When you upload a parent, they get an email from Securely that has your school's name, your school logo, and it tells them a little bit more about what this is, what it does. We also have welcome kits that we provide to you during your onboarding and your deployment process, so that you have handouts, backpack flyers, and explainer videos, and everything you need to just be successful. For parents that don't have access to a mobile phone, once a parent's been onboarded here, they can also access this interface through the parent console. So they could go to securely.com, hit login, and right underneath Safety Console, there is a link for parents called the Parent Console. They can sign in with their email address and password, which comes to them through that email. That way that anybody, regardless of if they have a mobile device, can still see all the reporting from for their specific child, or if they have multiple children at your school or school district, they can see and manage all of them, which is pretty cool. I love the Home app. It's delightful, and it supports Spanish and very soon French as well. So parents love it. That's parents. The final two pieces are super simple. We have our Auditor component in 24. So I'll touch on this pretty lightly. You'll notice it looks very similar to the activities section. Auditor is where all of your Google Mail or Exchange Mail goes. So if your students are using Outlook or Gmail, we can look at that traffic, the emails that are being sent back and forth, and flag them based on whether or not there's self-harm, cyberbullying, potential violence, or even profanity. So we can flag those and alert on it. We've also expanded Auditor to include Docs and Drive. This is both Microsoft and Google. So Google Docs, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and Word. We are looking at specifically, these things that we want to flag. We'll place them all right here. You can search by all the same things that you're able to search inside of activities. So name, email address, keywords, you name it. Filter them by the different types that we have. And these are also things that you can delegate out to those faculty groups. So those principals, they can help you because I will say, content filtering is a lot, but once you start applying student safety tools to the entire suite of tools that your students are using daily, especially from Google or Microsoft, like that's a lot of inspection and could potentially be a good amount of alerts depending on your school size. So it's it might not necessarily be a one-person job. It's something that you definitely want to be able to delegate out, and we give you those tools. And when those tools aren't enough, so if you don't, or say you don't have enough faculty group members that have the bandwidth to look at it, because we all know you have multiple roles, that's where Securely 24 comes into play. Securely 24 is a 24/7 solution that we offer, where we have around-the-clock coverage and visibility into all the alerts that are coming from your school district. We have student safety and analysts that will receive that alert. They can see the entire history of that user and make an informed decision as to, based on the communication protocol that we've defined with you during onboarding, does this require an escalation like via email or a phone call or a text? When you onboard with 24, we work directly with you to come up with that communication strategy. This tab right here is where you go to define who those emergency contacts are. at minimum, we want to have at least a couple emergency contacts. But it is recommended, especially for these larger deployments, that we define, building level contacts, so that it's relevant, so that you know who we're speaking about, so that you're not caught off guard. But this is where you, as that admin, can define all of that, and you can turn on and off 24 coverage. So all that's handled right here, and it couldn't be any simpler than that. So that concludes the Securely Safety Console overview. Hopefully this was informative. And if you're looking for really, really detailed walkthroughs of a specific section, or you're interested in understanding how Securely is deployed to, a Chromebook, or through your domain controller or your MDM, we have all these videos inside of here. We have also recently launched learn.securely.com. It's a free learning platform that has built courses for our safety console, but then also our device console, which is where Securely Classroom and MDM is. So take a look at all of that. We have tons of resources, a user community called the lounge at securely.com, which is where you can collaborate with other users of Securely, not just members at your school, but just share ideas. We put tons of webinars and fun content. You can win prizes and gift cards for like Starbucks and things like that. So we have you covered. I think that's about it. So with that, I'm going to let you go, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.